Hey everyone, welcome to the American Sidebar podcast. I'm your host, Joe Fitzgerald. The date is November 17th, 2023. Along with me, as always, my co-host,
Brian Mason.
On today's show, we have our first return guest, Zach Even-Esh. Brian, can you tell us something that we don't know about Zach?
Joe, we're welcoming Zach back to the show. His book, The Encyclopedia of Underground Strength and Conditioning, has just been released for a second time. Accompanying that book is a smaller book, Iron Journeys. Zach put a note in there that was written by the Ultimate Warrior to Zach. Zach, you must show no mercy, nor have any belief whatsoever in how others judge you, for your greatness will silence them all. The Ultimate Warrior. Zach has lived up to that, showing no mercy in his training, coaching, work ethic, giving and demanding 100% from himself and those he coaches. Zach, welcome back to the show.
Stand by for the show.
Tick, tick, boom. Who bringing the noise? Go, baby, we bringing our toys. Separate men from the boys. Chopper be singing, she'll be on the voice.
Welcome back, Zach.
Round two. Am I the first guy that's
You are.
on?
Yeah,
The first
guest.
repeat.
First repeat guest.
Yeah, it was fun. It was so, we got so kind of in depth about everything that
Yeah.
we kind of, there's a lot more that we want to know,
When somebody asks me a question, I'm like, just ask me the first question, then come back in 20 minutes. I'll just keep going.
If I wasn't interested, I would have just said, can you email me the rest of the
That's
story?
right. Email me.
This will probably be the only time I can butt in. So I just want to, I've never met anybody who knows more about working out than Joe and is more excited about it. So to see Joe so quiet last time was
It was
amazing.
funny.
I was like, tell me more.
He was like, bring it all in. I'm going to get 6 more
I
gym
could go.
memberships.
I could go on and on. It's crazy. That's what happens when you're so deep in something. You just have stories about You'll ask me about, let's say, an exercise or a barbell, or you'll name a gym like an old franchise, like Powerhouse Gym. Then I'll be like, oh,
It
let me tell
triggers
you
that
about-
memory.
Yeah, I remember the first Powerhouse Gym I went to. It was outside of the old, that prison is still there. It's East Jersey State Prison, but they called it Rahway State Prison, which was where they filmed Lockup, which I think we spoke about. But that was a powerhouse gym. And talk about, I remember the guy calling me. I guess they would buy phone numbers. Back then there was no email. And the guy called me to tell me about a special. I think gyms back then traditionally were $45 a month.
Yeah.
And so he was $25 a month. And I remember at this gym, that powerhouse gym, the atmosphere was dead. The music was so low. Nobody was there. It was it sucked the life out of you. So I remember after 1 month, I didn't even go back. I could not be in a gym where the music wasn't pumping and people weren't getting after it. Now, ironically, music is low because everybody has their own headphones on. And so what you miss with that is, how do you meet people? How do you, if you're a younger kid, who's mentoring you? Nobody could approach you because you have your AirPods in. So when I was young, doing something wrong, if I got lucky, one of the bigger, stronger guys would be like, hey, kid, that's not how you do that exercise. Try doing this, put your hands here, or go heavier, or stop doing so many. They gave you a tip, and you listen to them because they were jacked.
Now guys only do it to the good-looking girls.
Is that how it works?
Yeah.
What's on the Zach Even-Esh playlist?
Oh, I have a couple of them, so it depends.
See where he's going to go.
You could go on Spotify, and I think we have Underground Strength Gym, and then Underground Strength Gym, the number 2. So I'll have Rocky. I'll have Underground Strength Gym. Then I have Underground Strength Gym 2, which is a blend of some of the 90s hip-hop
Metallica
rap.
in there,
A lot of rock, yep. I mean, what's crazy is the Metallica, it was a cassette tape, Black, right? Was that what it was called?
Yeah.
I think to myself, I used to run to that cassette tape in 91, 92. And here we are, almost 2024. Those songs don't get old. Just like Rocky movies are still awesome.
AC/DC,
Oh, yeah.
Back in Black.
My phone is outside, so I'd be able to pull up, but some good Tool, which is a perfect circle. They all the different iterations of.
Someone was just talking about Tool, and I got ridiculed before.
Well, that guy, James Maynard Keenan, is a jiu-jitsu black belt, I think from Gracie, Henzo Gracie.
Is he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's also owns a winery in
Oh, yeah.
California.
Arizona. Or no, maybe you're right. He lives in Arizona.
No, I think it is Arizona.
Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it is. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a pretty interesting guy.
There's a video of
It's like Primus wine or something like
there's
that.
a video
Army
of somebody.
Army vet, I think he was a rifleman in the Army.
You're right. That sounds about right.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, he's a pretty interesting dude.
There's a video of some guy like storming the stage, and he like spins behind and chokes him.
He's like a little wiry looking dude. Too.
You never
Yeah.
know today. That's why
Yeah.
I check everybody's ears.
Yeah.
And that gives me like an idea of if shit goes sideways.
We talked about when we had Bill Brown here, and you got a lot of kids that walk around now with like that unwarranted self-worth. You know what I mean? Like that.
Perfectly said.
Yeah, and they just like walk around like they've conquered the world. And I always said like we should have that running ticker like our life accomplishments on our chest.
A lot of people would have blank T-shirts.
Yeah, I always say when you go into the gym, it says, do you ever see on the side view mirror, it says objects in mirror larger
right.
than they appear?
Yeah.
And then closer than they appear. I always
Yes.
say it's larger than they appear. Yeah, in the mirror.
That, just talking about jiu-jitsu reminds me, and I know we got a lot of questions, but I went to Los Angeles for 2 weeks when I was like 22, maybe 23. And I stayed at my brother's friend's house. He lived in the valley. It was called Encino. Remember that movie,
Yeah.
Encino Man?
Yep.
So he lived in the valley. They were in the same military unit in the Israeli army. And he always said, if your brother wants to come to California, he could stay with me. I have a futon and a spare room. So I stayed there for 2 weeks. And every day I went to Gold's Venice.
Yep.
I lifted at the weight pit, the weight pile. But one night I went into Venice, and I didn't know it was such a dangerous place. And there was a very small guy, 145 pounds, and he was getting pretty loud with the bouncer. And I just remember the bouncer saying, like, you're trespassing, get off this property. And he was 145 pounds, but I saw the ear along. He's like, let's fucking go around this corner. He's like, I'll fucking take care of you in 15 seconds.
He had the cauliflower rig on.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, damn. And that was early days. It wasn't called even jiu-jitsu back then. It was like 99, 2000. They were still calling MMA, no holds barred fighting. So I was like, oh, man, he's a scrapper. Like, he's probably... and he looked like he may have been like the tan skin in Hawaii. A lot of those guys are like Filipino or Samoan. Yep. And they still, to this day, there's a lot of like, let's solve our problem by scrapping. They fight.
Yeah.
So I just remember him being so small, and this guy was like 260. He was massive.
Well, that's when we grew up. That's how you solved, the real
There
problems
were
that
a lot of fights.
are ending in chaos now.
Yeah, a lot of fights in my neighborhood were like, it was like you couldn't. That's why I remember our last podcast. I said, once I started lifting weights, that changed the amount of bullies that were bothering me. The amount of bullies all of a sudden reduces because they size you up. And kids still size you up today in many ways, meaning my friend says in football, he goes, we want to win the game right when we get off the bus. We want to look bigger and stronger. And so yesterday, I trained the wrestling team before they went for their meeting. Not all of them trained, though. But those who trained, I saw everybody from the meeting. There was a significant difference in what the trained kids look like versus those that are on their own program. The kids that have been training with me, like, you could see their legs are big. You could see their traps coming out of their shirt, muscular forearms. And you could just see it's like, oh, damn. You have this, like, clear as day, black and white comparison. And I always tell kids, I'm like, listen, you're signing up for a sport where somebody's trying to hurt you.
It's a combat. Wrestling's a combat sport.
Right. Why would you do your own thing? You don't want to train with us. And I'm looking at our guys. They just look hard. Yeah. They look strong, and they are strong. They're very strong.
We were talking about this after the podcast before you left, and when I played arena football, you had to qualify to get on the field. So you had to do the bar for, chest was 225.
Oh, yes.
And, to be a wide receiver, just to get on, you had to put it up 10 times. And you had to play Ironman, so you had to do offense and defense. But that's, when we were talking about, you actually getting hands-on and actually being there for the kids and actually training them and knowing the people that you train versus, somebody else training them. That's essentially what they were doing with arena football. It was you had to be able to do this to get onto the field, to build that, what you call armor. Right?
Yeah, it shows a couple things. It shows you're prepared.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm looking at it from like a school standpoint, what's the liability factor? It's not safe to have somebody who's weak on the team.
Yeah.
Same thing with, arena football or really any other combative sport. But it's so hard now to get like, what is the number that it should be? What is the average? So you got to test kids and see where they should be. I just compiled a list of injuries from our fall athletes. And I looked at the high school level, you really want to look at attendance. And so I looked at attendance, and it's like injury, didn't train, barely trained. Injury, didn't train, like winter, spring, summer. Some kids are not even showing up in season.
Yeah, if you looked at my record, it was always, I didn't show up for school, but I trained.
I'm surprised they allowed him not to go during season. That you should have to show up.
That's common sense.
Especially because you're correcting them as they go along.
Is there
common sense?
I don't know if it's on an athletics, from the athletics director or something like that, or if it's a team-based thing. But is there certain amount of workouts or anything like that you have to be on or do before you actually play?
But hopefully we're going to start doing that. Like working with one of the football coaches now, he's going to start tracking attendance and testing certain exercises, which is important because now he's going to be looking at attendance and having that have an implication on their playing time, which parents might say that's not fair. Well, it absolutely is because it's showing.
Well, it's fair if your kid's going to get hurt. I mean, you want to make sure that he's prepared.
And they look at it. I don't want to say they as all, but if I'm a dad, I would say because now I know my son has a greater chance of not getting hurt. Same thing with my daughter in her sport. Mm-hmm. So when a coach doesn't have the standard in the weight room, that's part of the culture. And so if there's not a standard, well, I don't even want to say you've cracked the culture. You've put a hole, in that culture. And now it's like water just coming out.
Yeah.
And, I never understood it. Like, wow, why would a kid sign up for, football, lacrosse, wrestling, something that's combative and not train? And my wrestling coach said to me, he said, Zach, there's always been lazy kids. There's always been kids that cut class, cut workouts, cut practice. Mm-hmm. He's like, you just didn't see it. You were a good kid. You kind of you were a listener. He's like, it's been around for forever. And I believe that at the high school level, you could track weights and whatnot and have kind of a average. Like, I don't have my phone with me, but I was communicating with two of my buddies in Indiana. And they said basically anybody who could clean 300 pounds at our school becomes all-state. You're going to be all-state football, all-state wrestling. They're like, we have found that that's a pretty basic number. They said... I
got to start doing cleans again.
Cleans, it was interesting. Like, this one guy...
They stopped that for a while, right? In high school?
Cleans? Well, or what do you mean? Like, they stopped what?
Doing cleans in the gym or no?
It's only Planet Fitness.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right.
Planet Fitness.
You're not allowed to do it there?
There's no barbells, are there?
Yeah.
It's dumbbells.
Is that not one of the 6 gyms you go to, Joe?
But that's not one of the gyms I go to. Yeah.
I think they just have the only plate loaded is the Smith machine.
I hear rumors that, and this is probably not true, but
we're going to get sued by Planet Fitness.
Someone told me
in
that
Alabama.
They do
Don't say it in Alabama.
pizzas. So they do
Friday.
Pizza Friday.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true?
I have a guy at work that told me he goes there every
that.
Friday and have pizza.
I've seen that stuff. What I do like about them is they allow kids to train for free in the summer.
Yeah,
but
that's awesome.
That is awesome.
Here's my thing. It's like, that should happen. Like, put a Planet Fitness in a, I don't know, in Camden where people don't have the money.
Yeah.
Let those kids train for free. What's interesting, too, is like Camden Public School football, they crush it. Same thing with Irvington. And those kids aren't eating, grass-fed steak and having, free-range eggs. They're eating SpaghettiOs and crap. But they have a culture. They're intense. They're tough. And sometimes that is a massive advantage over the perfect training program and the perfect nutrition program. Because like that movie Cinderella Man, where he had the concussion, and they're like, listen, the doctor's like, you shouldn't fight. And he's like, I'm fighting, what do you say? I'm fighting for milk or I'm fighting for bread?
Yeah.
I'm fighting for bread. Yeah.
To put food on the table.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand, I even say it to my own kids, like, what happens if things go south? You're coming back to Manasquan.
Yeah.
You're not, what are you fighting for?
Yeah.
But I look at Edison, where I grew up. I'm so glad I got out of there. The work it took for me with the business and working in the schools to afford to move to Manasquan. I'm so glad we did it, because I look at Edison and it's just I think about little things like people, if you left anything in your locker unlocked, it was stolen. I work in Middletown, High School South. Kids leave, let's say they're fundraising and they're selling chocolate. They'll leave a box with cash right there and it's just untouched.
Yeah.
In Edison, that would be gone in 3 seconds. And I don't want my kids around that. Bikes stolen, people getting murdered, all that stuff, looking back to just a lot of stuff. So, but then there's an edge to that when you grow up somewhere tougher. Brian, where you grew up in Brooklyn?
Yeah, in Sunset Park, baby.
There you go.
It was a little different than Middletown. I'm still trying to figure out how to get to Manasquan, though. Manasquan is freaking nice.
Manasquan is very nice, but sometimes you're like, it's,
Yeah, we had a lot of violence where I grew up at the time, especially when I grew up.
Did you know of an area called Starrett City?
That's by East New York.
My best friend grew up there. So during high school, and all through elementary, middle school, high school, his grandmother lived on our neighborhood. So he spent the weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, in Edison. So yeah, he lived in Starrett City.
Yeah, it was kind of like a working class, it's in between projects and apartment buildings.
It was apartments.
It was like a working class type of project type.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny how you look back? For me, I grew up in Jackson, and you didn't think it was as violent or as crazy as you saw it, because it was just your normal life.
Jackson, going to a place like Jackson for me as a kid, that was going to paradise.
Yeah,
and because I did unfortunately we had
paradise. That is great.
I still remember as a kid going,
Jackson is paradise. Make that a TV commercial.
Hearing when the windows were open in the summertime.
That poor bastard that goes there for paradise.
Yeah, that's how. You think about it. Go to a place like Six Flags as a kid, you looked around like, oh my God, this is because we heard
changed too.
There were gunfights in my neighborhood.
Well, we had. There's a lot of kids,
and they couldn't shoot. That was they shot everything but each other.
It's a shotgun, it's in the overall area, right?
Yeah.
It's like hand grenades and horseshoes. But yeah, a lot of kids that I grew up with has overdosed. Just
you got that aspect.
It's crazy.
Well, you're hanging out in the woods.
Heartbreaking.
But so let me ask you a question. It's we talked about the different the Schwarzenegger Bible and all these different variations of exercises.
I love that book.
How do you stay up on modern exercises? Because we talked about one exercise and it was a joke, right? I was joking around about doing military press behind your neck.
Yeah. That's right. The behind the neck press.
Yeah.
It's so taboo now.
Yeah, and it's funny. If you see, I do it. So it's funny to see people's reaction when I'm doing it. He's going to hurt himself or whatever.
Right.
But
the alarm goes off. Stop that guy.
Yeah, but just curious, how do you stay up? Because there's so many different variations. Whether there's all these different avenues to find.
It comes down to what's in your sphere or circle of influence. So I'm kind of on cutting edge with sports performance. Like I was telling you, I'm texting these two guys. My one friend who's in a school in Indiana. He's got 60 to 90 kids in the weight room during phys ed. He takes zero break because he doesn't want anybody else to do it. So 6 classes a day. So we're looking at 500, 600 kids a day. Weightlifting, meaning clean.
60 to 90 in a gym.
60 to 90.
One guy.
And you look at this weight room and you think you're looking at the Olympic Training Center. But he's like, listen, when I started, we were like right in, we were outside of like the custodian's office, just like in the heating room. He's like, then we grew and we grew. This school that he's at is world class, but it was built into it. He's been there for a long time. And when we talk about guys, we talk about lessons we've learned from the best. All the best coaches were mentored by somebody. There's like a tree that came from this one guy and this one guy. So this guy, Mark Garrett, he's at a school called Crown Point, and I'm asking him, hey, what is the average that a kid over 200 or under 200 should squat, bench, clean? And they're rattling off how many kids are cleaning 300 pounds. So it's a lot of kids. And it's like, whoa, bro, that's rare unless you're at like a big D1 football team. And it goes to show you like it's who is in your circle of influence. So him and then this other guy, Jeremy was at a school and then he got tired of the politics. So he said, F it, I'm not coaching. And now he just coaches people online or out of his house. And he's got he just sent me a video of a guy who could possibly be like a representative for our Olympic wrestling team. He trains him from afar, but then once a month, that guy spends the weekend with him and trains him. And then a lot of my friends coach in the NFL or the Division I level. And it's interesting. Sometimes we think it's like, oh, they're at the D1 level. I've been to the D1 level, and sometimes I've seen them coach, and it's kind of shitty. And it's all from who you learn from. Like, what is the standard of excellence for technique? For example, somebody might say, hey, Zach, we don't really, I see that your list of exercises says hang power clean, trap bar deadlift, back squat. We do those exercises. Okay, show me how you do them. For example, I'm watching kids lift today during lunch. I see a kid squatting. So I said to the one assistant football coach, I see what he's doing? The last 3 inches, he bounces out of the bottom. Look at his knees caving in. You see his feet moving, ankles caving in. So he's squatting, but he's squatting incorrectly. Yeah. He's bouncing. His knees are caving in, which shows a weakness of the hips and the glutes, like the medial glutes, and also shows ankle instability. Now, that may, people listening might be like, well, what does that mean? Well, if he's one of our running backs or wide receivers and he blows out an ankle because the coach who's running it doesn't give a shit about those little details, well, that guy might be the guy who scores your most touchdowns, but now he can't because we didn't address the ankle instability and the technique because everybody was pushing heavier, lift heavier. And so...
Why don't you go talk to the coaches that's coaching Saquon Barkley, because he's got some problems.
Yeah, where's he? Where's Saquon?
He's a Giants running back.
Okay.
He's hurt every other week.
So that's interesting. So my buddy actually coaches there.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Oh man, this might get touchy.
Well,
the Giants are going to come and beat the crap
here's
out
what's
of you.
interesting about that is
it's the truth.
Sometimes, how many years has he been in the NFL for?
6.
Is it 6 or more? I've seen videos of him training. So in the NFL guys, you know how long they spend with them? You have the OTAs, which is like obligatory, like training assessment or something. I don't even know what it stands for.
He squats something ridiculous too.
I think I saw him like box squat. If I recall, he was box squatting, but like kind of bouncing. Look, when you get to the NFL, you're automatic genetic freak of the freaks.
Yeah.
My buddy always tells me stories. He played in the NFL 10 years. But going back to that, they see the guys for 5 weeks. And then there's something like 4 weeks before the first game. They're with them 9 weeks. Most of these guys, especially once they have a family, they go back to where they grew up, where their parents are from, where they could spend time with family. So then they get a private coach. Now, some private coaches are great. One of my friends, Buddy Morris, he's like one of the OGs in the sport. He's the performance director for Arizona Cardinals. He calls personal trainers personal terrorists. He's like, because they hurt the guys, they do stupid shit, they do crazy circus tricks, tiptoeing around all kinds of hurdles, all this hip switching. He's like, they come back, they don't get strong.
Do you think it's because they're not really intimate with that particular person?
No, I think the strength coach, whether it's the Giants, my buddies there, or any other place, you're not with these guys enough. Yeah. You have minimal time to get them going. My friend who spent 10 years in the NFL says this. He's like, they don't even put on pads until like there's minimal contact. He's like, we did so many full contact practices before our first game. We entered the first game kind of beat up. And he's like, it actually slowed us down a little bit. Yeah. He's like, now they're so fresh that they have too much horsepower that their body can't handle it. When you make it to the NFL, first of all, think about this. How many Division I, if we speak about football, how many schools send one kid to a Division I football team every year? Do you know?
It can't be many.
Well, it could be 0.
Yeah.
It could be sometimes 1. If a school has like 5 seniors going to a D1 football team, you're like, oh my God, they're freaks. And then here's what happens. When they get to that Division I football team, everybody's the same. And then you have the other like top of the crew.
Yeah.
And so it might take you another 2 years of development before you actually get legit playing time.
Yeah.
Well, now things are different with the transfer portal. My buddy coaches at Troy, which is Troy, Alabama, D1 program. So I think a D1 team has like 110 players. He's like, we have 50 new kids every year the past 2 years.
Wow.
You can't develop them. Why do they have 50 new players? Transfer portal. I'm not playing. I'm out of here. That coach sucks. Listen, sometimes a kid is on a team and realizes there's no way he's going to make that lineup. And he's like, shit, I probably shouldn't have even gotten to this school or even applied. I should have gone somewhere where I'm better suited. And half of the kids quit by the time sophomore year is over. So you have not even 1% of the team making it to D1. And so 6 or 7% of kids play college sports. Half of them are quitting before it's even junior year. So in the NFL strength coach doesn't have enough time to develop them. The thing about pro athletes is they're kind of crazy. They're eccentric. So they might think, I don't want to squat. Give me something crazier. So you're kind of doing fancy stuff that doesn't really maybe make them better, but they believe in it because they're like, I'm doing something special. But when it comes down to it, we need brilliance with the basics. Like Bill, who was here as a Navy SEAL. I bet you that he uses the same guns as, let's just say, some of the guns they use are the same as maybe like a SWAT team uses, but the SWAT team trains once a month.
Yeah.
Okay? So it's what is the level of skill you have
it's
with
that perfection, that training.
That's right. So a lot of people are just happy with good enough. And my saying is good enough is the death of greatness. And good enough gets you second place. You're looking good. You win a lot of the time, but you're not winning championships. Winning championships requires absolute commitment to excellence. And here's the other thing at the NFL level. That game is so intense compared to even the highest level Division I football. So my friend coached at the Division I level at many schools, I think 5 schools. Then he coached in the NFL for 9 years. He's like, brother, let me tell you, you don't understand the difference in play. He's like, this is how intense it is. Pop Warner to Division I is the same as the difference of Division I to NFL. He's like, guys are dying to get the ball or make the play. Yeah. They're dying for it. But you know what else is crazy? On the flip side, you have NFL players who don't train. I have friends that tell me they spend the entire offseason doing nothing.
Yeah.
And they come back
That's insane. You wouldn't expect that.
You would not expect it. He's like, and that's their opportunity to make generational money. The amount of money that, let's say, our grandkids wouldn't have to work. But they're just lazy. They don't understand that they need to be. They know that they need to work. They just opt not to.
Yeah, I think we kind of touched on it in the in the other podcast. But if you look at people, let's just say like an average of two people, you have there's always that debate between like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, right? Who's the greatest ever?
Right.
And when I look at those people, LeBron James is just physically just gifted, right? I mean, he's a monster.
He's
right?
bigger than those guys.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you look at somebody, like Michael Jordan obviously put in the work. Kobe wasn't as gifted as both of them, but he put in the work. I mean, you always hear like, the Mamba mentality and stuff, and he's always, constantly working. And I think that's what kind of separates that mentality. You could be as gifted as you want, right? But if you're not putting in the work,
it catches up. I mean, it's cliche.
Yeah.
What is it? Hard work beats talent. It's like nobody wants to hear that.
Hard work beats talent.
When talent doesn't work hard, nobody wants to hear it. But I've watched it happen. I've been coaching for over 20 years, so I watch it happen all the time. In the most critical moments, I'll watch a wrestler who was lazy lose in the blood round of nationals, lose in the blood round of the state tournament. I'll watch a football player who was lazy eventually get injured or eventually miss tackles, miss catching a ball. And people might not, put them together, but it catches up to you in a negative way. You're accruing negative points.
Yeah.
And I think that's really analogous to life. I call it like putting up points on the scoreboard of life. Lazy, skipping meals, party on the weekend. I mean, I remember it in high school. There was a kid junior year who started like beating really good guys on the wrestling team. He was okay sophomore year. Junior year, he starts beating state place winners, state qualifiers. Then him and that crew started partying every weekend. Probably a lot of drinking. Back then, pot wasn't really popular back then, so kids just smoked cigarettes. But I remember him losing lots of matches senior year. He looked exhausted. And then I heard one of our coaches say, hey, maybe all that partying caught up to you.
He's probably hungover trying to go to a tournament.
Yeah, and kids would, that's what you're talking about, what we grew up in. You'd see kids drinking at like 7 a.m. in the parking lot like that was like a cool or smart thing to do, going into school drunk. And so I'm sorry, you can't.
Ryan's laughing, so you can tell he was the guy.
I'm not supposed to admit anything.
You can't operate at your best that way. But going back to the NFL, I think there was like an NFL strike way back in the day, right, for their contracts and all the training. And I think part of it was they kind of demanded less training.
Yeah.
So my buddy John always says they would pay you to stay and train. They told him, they're like, we're not paying you because we know you're going to train on your own. So he's like, all right, go fuck yourselves then. And he would go. So John played for the Eagles. Then he played for, I don't follow football enough. Who's Kansas City?
Chiefs.
He played for the Chiefs, and dang, I feel like he played for one more team.
So who wanted less training, the players or
the players?
Wow.
They wanted less training. There's a lot.
It was too demanding on them, or they just didn't want
I don't really know. I know, like, if I was to coach in the NFL, I'd have a better lifestyle than if I coached for, any college football program, unless you're in the Ivy Leagues when they really shut things down. I don't want to say they shut things down, but when academic and exams are going on, there's a limited schedule, and it's just not as crazy. But, the bottom line is you need to squat, you need to clean, you need to carry. It's this taking the basics from a real rudimentary level and taking them to a real high level. So going back to, like, how do you stay cutting edge? My friends that are coaches are the best of the best. And I do see what's cool too is, though, I will utilize Instagram and see some coaches at like a local level, like private sector or the high school level is really impressive in certain states like Indiana. My buddy who I'm telling about, he told me he had a full-time strength coach when he was in high school in the late 80s. Yeah. Full-time. So Indiana, you do strength and conditioning during the day for your phys ed, mandatory if you're an athlete. Check this story out. Years ago, Was I at Lehigh? I think I had just, it was like a year after Lehigh. Maybe it was around then, 2014, 2015. My kids were younger, 9 years ago. We were considering moving south because of all the tennis my daughter was doing. So I looked up like strength and conditioning jobs down south, and I saw one at a high school. And I put in for it because my friend coached in that school district. And he said, yes, put in for it. He's like, that's the other side of town. That's the blue-collar school district. He's like, our school has 3 turf fields. They only have 1 turf field. And so he's like, I'm going to put you in touch with the coach. So we were in Florida at the time for my daughter's tennis. We would do like half tennis, half vacation. And they're calling me with like, we got like 3 days left of this trip. And I'm like, man, I don't want to call them because they want to schedule this interview. So I don't want to get back to them right away. Before I had put in for the application, I was put in touch with the football coach. He's like, we need you here. We need somebody like you here. He's like, if our kids don't train the week of games, he's like, I don't let them play. He's like, you call me anytime. If I'm not home, I'm either at church or at football practice. So long story short, I tell my wife, I'm like, they keep calling me. They want.
Sounds like a good spot.
This is a great spot.
Sounds like you're in Texas.
They're calling me day after day, 3 days in a row.
I want to take the job.
So I say to my wife, let's, instead of flying from Orlando back home, let's go to South Carolina. Let's check it out. And if we love the area, then I'm going to take this interview. So we rent a car. My wife is great at organizing all this. So rent a car, we drive there, and we drive around quite a lot. And it looks very rural. It reminds me of like old school Jackson. And I'm like, I don't know if this is where the kids will like to be. To me, every decision I make is what's better for my family, period. That's it. So I'm thinking, I don't know. You know, it looks beautiful. I would do it. My kids are used to going to the beach and this and that. So we're like, all right. So I make the phone call back. I speak to the secretary of the director of athletics. She says to me, you should have told me that you were coming to look at the area. We would have driven you around and helped you find housing. That's at a high school.
Nice.
And I know, I'm like, that's why
everybody moves south.
Yeah.
That's how they treat athletics. There's a more serious approach to it down in the Carolinas, Georgia, Texas, Indiana, Ohio is very big. I was on the phone with a guy a little bit before I came here the first time, driving home from Cornell. So I was up at Cornell to do a little consulting trip with Spartan Combat, which is their regional training center. And I'm speaking to this coach in Iowa, and their weight room is massive. He's got his own office. There's got to be like 15 double-sided racks. It's immaculate, and it looks like a collegiate. And he's like, listen, I'm concerned we're doing too much with wrestling. They come in. The wrestling coach was a college wrestler, University of Northern Iowa, tough guy. He's like, they come in at 6 a.m. We run 2 miles, including the heavyweights. Then we lift. He's like, then the parents bring breakfast. All the parents make a bunch of like egg and cheese sandwiches and bring the kids food. I was like, listen, it is a lot. I probably wouldn't run 2 miles 3 days a week with somebody who weighs 220 and up. I was like, but here's the other thing. What if they're doing nothing? What if your coach, what if that wrestling coach doesn't even want them in the weight room? That's the other angle. Yeah. That's angles I'm dealing with myself at a high school. I'd rather have a coach who's a little bit too much over rather than, see, I'm okay. We're going to just do it our way. Yeah. And so it's tough to find like that happy medium. But I told him, I go, dude, I'll take that work ethic over the absence of the kids. And so, you know, it's interesting. My best friends, a lot of them are strength coaches. Like one of my closest friends, he was coached at many D1 schools. He was in the XFL, and then before that, he was with the Falcons for 4 years. Like whenever
The
we talk,
XFL, is that the one Shane McMahon? What was the one Shane McMahon?
yes,
That was one
correct.
with like all the names. He hate me. And all.
Oh, okay. I thought that was it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it was like the W. It's owned by The Rock and the McMahon family.
Yeah, The Rock. Yeah.
It's not. They don't have it anymore. Or
They made a lot of quote unquote budget cuts. You know?
They did.
Is it still
It
running?
just got reactivated. I think
so.
like last year, or 2 years ago.
You
or
could
something
ask
like
Shane
that.
McMahon when we were at the block party. He was standing right next to you.
Yeah, they did. They had the season last year.
Mm-hmm.
Then they made cuts because I think they're going in NFL stadiums. I think.
Yeah,
Listen, you're never going to compete with the NFL.
yeah.
I mean, there's the UFC, and then
Well, there's also Canadian football. There's
I heard Canadian football is super high paced
Yeah.
and like crazy fans. Have you ever seen video clips of, man, there's a basketball player and they're like, hey, do you know what I'm talking about? They're like, how do you deal with the fans? He's like, brother, I played in Belarus, or
No, I never saw
oh my God, the like people are chanting, they're like going crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
it was absolutely nuts. If I come across that video, I'll show it to you. But the passion, it's like you ever see those like international soccer games?
I went to. I was just gonna say I went to an Israeli game, and it
what,
was
soccer?
Yeah, and it was insane. Like they were doing like dances back and forth, like between. There's like cages, like sectioned off. They wouldn't
I didn't
let us
know
outside the
soccer was
cages.
so crazy.
Oh, it's
so
crazy.
this was where
That was in Israel, by the way.
that was in Israel.
Yeah.
This guy, crap. When I come across it, I'll send it to you. The crowd was nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, soccer in Europe is insane. Remember, I think they murdered a goalie one time.
They have
'cause
fights
He
and-
missed the game.
I think
He missed the goal.
The cartel did that. That was in
One of them was in Italy. The mob killed the guy.
yeah.
I knew people from England. They used to actually. They have a, in like Brooklyn, you have the gates that you pull down on like for the stores.
Oh yeah.
They don't use them for criminals. It's for soccer. So like they said, the hooligans and the cops are pulling people out of the stadium, and so they in these towns they shut those gates down because or else they go crazy and they'll bash the windows because if they
Yeah, when you go in there, it's like you could feel it. It's really exciting. I mean, I'm not into soccer, right, or football, whatever you want to call it. But you go in there and like everybody's really excited. They're all painted up and they're like really animated and they're dancing back and forth. And
It's like
when I was in
our-
Ireland in July, that's all over the TV.
Yeah.
Everything is football, like you're saying,
Yes.
football. But
I like the kind of the under the radar type sports in these other countries. Like some of the countries have
Like the
stone
slap?
lifting.
underground fight clubs, the kumites.
Kumite. Only the kid. I always like when my son was.
Naksuko.
Yeah, when my son was 4, I had him watching Predator, Commando, Rambo: First Blood. Yeah,
Tong Po from Kickboxer.
yeah. He's kicking the beam. Look at this.
Yeah.
Such great
You want me
movies.
to do this?
Yes. And then listen, those 80s movies, everybody could laugh at them. But guess what? What did we do when we went home?
Mm-hmm.
Push-ups and curls. You started training. You saw those movies.
Yeah.
And you were like, damn, I have to.
It's so funny now. Like if I watched Bloodsport, so I'm sitting there in like my little man cave, and I'm like I'm just gonna watch a stupid movie, So I put on Bloodsport.
How dare you call that movie stupid?
You get to a point in the movie, it's so funny. It's like it's so cheesy now. Like if you watched it now, you're
Right.
like, what-
You
what
forget
is
how bad the acting was.
Yeah, it was like, who made this thing? I can make it on my iPhone better than
right.
this, But they stopped like halfway through the movie and they did this like big montage.
Yes.
One of the best movies, I think, especially from a wrestling standpoint, is Vision Quest.
I was just gonna say, I remember.
Oh my God! I
that was
still
a good
watch
one.
that. I think
My
that's amazing.
friend did a podcast with Matthew Modine.
Yeah, Matthew Modine.
And Matthew Modine said, like, we could never. There was somebody was trying to replicate Vision Quest again. He's like, we could never make that movie again. He's like, it's too taboo. Like
Yeah.
the kid trying to have a relationship
With the girl, yeah.
with the girl. I can't remember what other things he said.
Trip was on steroids. The other wrestler.
Who was?
He was the remember the guy that was carrying logs up.
Oh yeah, no, shoot.
Shoot, that's it,
What
yeah.
state was that supposed to be in?
Or,
It's got to be like Iowa. Or,
Yeah.
yes.
yeah,
So
Nebraska.
He's like running in a rubber suit.
and you know the dude who was always said he's like I'm part Indian. Who was that guy?
Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about.
That's my friend.
Yeah, the motorcycle.
My friend's wife's uncle.
Really?
Yes. So like we always it's
You
so
should get him on your podcast. That'd be awesome.
yeah. I forget his name.
I forget.
I don't think he was.
He did
was
another
in
movie or two after that.
Sweet 16.
Yeah, that's it.
Not that I watch it. My wife watches.
He was
Wanna
the-
let Vincent know here.
He was the married. You say married?
Yeah, that's
Remember?
right.
Yeah.
Maori.
Yeah.
That movie was nuts.
How about just kind of getting back to it. When I was growing up,
Yes.
it was, you get to a point where you're doing like pee-wee football and things like that, right?
Yep.
And you get to a point where it's like it's your parents bringing you and then they're very involved, right?
Right.
And then you get to the next step when you become like 13, 14, you get a little bit more aware of yourself, you get into girls and stuff like that.
Yep.
How do you keep kids focused?
Oh yeah, that's such an interesting question. So I always think about this because it's such a different kind of kid I'm training when I go to my own gym, the underground strength gym, versus at the school. It's just like we have kids that are trying to really get to the top of wherever they are. And they're traveling from, they might be local where they could ride bikes from Manasquan, but a lot of them are coming from Ocean County, Middlesex County, 45-minute drive. And there's something within them where they're different. They're built different. They want more. They don't want to be just part of the team. They don't want to just stop at being on varsity. They want to win everything. So, for example, this kid's now a sophomore, but I remember last year the dad texted me saying Landon's goal was to be on the varsity soccer team as a freshman. He made it. And you don't really hear too many varsity players who are freshmen, skill-wise, size-wise, emotional maturity. When you're 14, you're just not the same as an 18-year-old or even a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
So how do I keep them focused? We have a high level, a high standard. And I found that if I compare that to sometimes working in school, you're like, I'm going to let this slide. I'm going to let that slide. It's school. You don't want to hear somebody complain about it. There's like kids have 100 things going on. But at the private sector, when a kid is late a few times, I'm like, listen, if you're going to keep coming late, you're not training in this group. You're coming to the next group because you're missing the warm-up and it's going to catch up with you. And I had this conversation with a kid. He had a wrestling tournament 2 weeks ago. He went 1-2. He's like, but my last match, it was really close. It was really tight. We were going back and forth. I lost it. I said, I'll tell you why you lost. You're always 7 minutes late, guaranteed. So I was like, that 7 minutes caught up with you in a negative manner. And then I also put accountability on them and the parents because I tell them, I'm just a part of the puzzle. I'm not the whole thing. I'm not the answer to, the biggest problems you have. But if you don't stock the fridge and the cabinet with healthy foods over and over again, your son will slow down with muscle growth and getting stronger. I could see it a mile away. If you don't take your son or daughter to the club training to get the skills needed, that will hold them back unless they're doing it in the streets on their own. But kids don't play street sports anymore. Like Manasquan, at one point a couple years ago, the girls were ranked like 15th in the country, 14th in the country. And so when I saw that, I said, that's interesting because I've been here for, at the time, whatever it was, 8 years. I've never seen girls play basketball at the park. You have to go to the basketball club. I think.
Yeah, they're all in the AAU leagues and
right.
showcase.
There's no street ball going on, which to me I think is a negative. That's a big reason why we see so many injuries. So we have a high standard, and then it's up to them to follow through. If you don't follow through, and I see you're not putting in the work or you're not showing up on the regular, I reach out to the parents. Of course, I do a check-in. Is everything all right? Okay. Everything's okay, but you're not showing up enough. And if the kid is not working, we just say, listen, we're taking a break. You could come back in 6 months or a year if you want to. In my early days coaching, before I was a dad, my intensity level was like very high, and I just kicked people out
Yeah.
all the time.
Now you're soft. You're
Yeah.
soft, Dad.
I always say I got soft. The athletes.
You have girls?
I have a daughter and a son. Yeah, I think like this
That's
all
what
the time.
killed me. I'm still hard on my son, but
Yeah.
my daughters.
How would you want your own kids to be coached? So
His son's like 5 years old. He's like, I saw, I'm still hard on
once
him.
your son watches blood sport, then you can be tougher on him. So how do you keep him focused? That's not my job, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's up to them. That's part of being a winner. Do you, living in Manasquan? That's why we don't have a lot of Manasquan kids train with us. They're distracted by the beach, by surfing, by doing all that. And okay, if you want to do that, and then you want to train at 6 p.m. when you've been in the sun for 8 hours, 10 hours, you're dehydrated, you have no food in your body, you're probably not going to be that successful. That's really the truth of it. If you're, even like now, like winter sports starts next week, if I didn't see you all fall because you want to do your own thing and you're working and this and that, listen, man, if you can't put in the work, you will not be a success. I honestly cannot understand that. I can't understand any kid, no matter how young, in high school level, signs up for a sport where you can get injured and you ain't training your ass off and you don't want to train with me. So there's a responsibility on the athlete. And here's the thing, though. What's the repercussion for kids not doing the work now?
None.
None.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
You
but you're saying though, like when they go to wrestling, they're gonna get beat. So they.
I once saw a kid.
You're giving them standards at your.
Well, they probably
saw
don't. They probably don't realize that that's the reason, right? They're probably
No,
blaming.
I
Their
explained to
ego
them.
maybe is saying, "Oh, it's."
I said to a kid, he stopped wrestling. His freshman year showed up all the time. Then after the season ended, he stopped. Then sophomore year, I watched him wrestle, and he got manhandled to a point where he really could have gotten hurt. But I told him, that right there was the culmination of all the work you refused to do. And I said, here's what I feel bad for. Your mom had to watch that. That is scary for your mom. That's heartbreaking. And you don't care. And what are we asking? For somebody to show up twice a week, 45 minutes, 90 minutes? So the focus part comes down to, what is that athlete willing to do? Everybody wants to win. Of course, everybody wants to win. But who's willing to do the work, to eat? Who's going to say breakfast was a granola bar versus breakfast was 2 egg and cheese sandwiches. Breakfast was a bowl of oatmeal with a scoop of protein powder and a glass of chocolate milk. What did you eat after school? I had a Pop-Tart. I had a muffin. Well, then you don't want it. You don't want to win, because if you want to win, your after-school food can be a protein shake or a turkey sandwich, and you could. How long does it take to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich?
30 seconds.
That's right, 30 seconds. I tell them 30 seconds the night before, you make a peanut butter jelly sandwich, put it in the fridge, then it's in your book bag, and you eat that right after school. But you want a muffin. You want a Pop-Tart. You want food that's on, the cancer list.
I have one at home because of your advice. He's eating me out of house and home right now. So
Yeah,
you got to tone down this food talk.
It's a lot on the
It's
parents.
expensive.
It is expensive.
He's cooking burgers every day.
I go on a Monday here because we don't have a regular kitchen, so just got a microwave or whatever. But I do. It's funny. I eat 2 eggs and cheese on just a white bread.
For what, breakfast?
For breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I have granola. I have oatmeal.
You do eat white bread?
Yogurt.
I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm actually
They'll
serious.
never look
'cause
at you the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't, because I remember Arnold saying it's white death. He would say it.
It's I don't and I'm listen, I'm not to say I'm past my prime, but I don't
Right.
I'm not doing anything,
I totally
I'm
know what
working
you're
out
saying.
just for my mind.
And I think if parents didn't compete themselves, then this sounds like crazy talk.
Yeah.
I'm not saying parents were successful athletes. I'm just saying, did you compete in sport and learn how to be pushed and learn how to train to win?
They have a better understanding when they
Yes.
work competitive.
So I have a kid that says, my dad won't let me cook eggs. He doesn't like the smell in the house. Well, listen, bro, you're playing football. I'd rather you Your dad needs to let you eat eggs. I don't
Yeah.
even know what to say about that. You have to eat. Nope, I can't eat eggs.
I have this little device where you drop 2 eggs into like these little plastic things,
Yeah.
and you can microwave them. And
My kids eat a ton of
I put them on 30 seconds each. I flip it, and it
But here's my
tastes just
thing,
like regular
Joe. It's
eggs.
like that's what's happened with this world is like we're trying to complicate everything.
Mm-hmm.
Butter on the pan, 2 to 3 eggs, 2 pieces of toast, cheese, boom, sandwich.
Yeah.
Like I don't need another machine.
But you know what's
Yeah.
funny though? Like when you talk about commercial food, it being that butter on the pan was like, oh, that's going to give you a heart attack.
Yeah.
Butter is good.
Yeah.
Healthy fat.
And then they said lard. You should use lard.
Well, we were talking about buying meat from farmers, and that was
Yes.
one of the things. I've never used lard. So the guy was like, when I was talking to the butcher, they
Yes.
butcher the pig, and he goes, oh, well, you want the lard, and I'm sitting there going, I didn't take it, but
You save it and you could put it
and
in
I should because it's natural.
Did you ever see? There's a
cast iron pan. You use it for cooking.
But everybody has been telling us don't eat that. Use the pan. Meanwhile, that's probably what's giving you.
So my daughter's autistic, my 9-year-old, and I was watching videos on autism and diets and things like that.
But yeah, I've known people who
Oh,
help
yeah.
their kids
Yeah.
with
And-
changing the diet.
And that was one of the things they were
What was the
talking
major change? Higher fat, higher protein, low sugar.
Yep.
You know what that's also been known for? People with cancer. Keto.
Really.
Yeah, well, keto's now popular, right? It
Yeah.
became a fad. But one of the earliest guys that was implementing ketogenic diet for athletes was a guy named Dr. Mauro Di Pasquale from Canada. And speaking of that, like, how do you stay cutting edge? I have a friend who was mentored by him. So my buddy who played in the NFL did his diet with Dr. Mauro Di Pasquale. They called it the anabolic diet. And it was
That's where I know the name from.
high protein, high fat. And also, interesting you say that. My niece, she's 13 or 14. She's 8th grade. But a couple of years back, she had some seizures, and they kind of found it was like related to if you had some sugar at night. And then some kids outgrow that. But they've also found that for people who have seizures, it tends to be high sugar. That is what causes disease and joint pain and a lot of
and it's the
gaining
table,
of body
like the
fat.
regular sugar, not like what you get in fruit and stuff.
Correct.
It's
You're correct. Yeah, my bad, Brian. So fruit, natural sugar, raw honey, natural. Even like if I make coffee, I don't put sugar in it. I'll do raw honey.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't give it some weird taste or anything like that. But the more we could get away from something that was created in a laboratory, the better off we are. But everything is moving towards convenience. What is easier? What is faster? What is 5 minutes away instead of 20
I'm a
minutes
victim
away?
of that.
Yeah, you eat the
We're
Pop-Tart.
all
Yeah.
we all are victims to it. Like the phone, the phone gives us more information easier than ever before, faster than ever before. But now you got to understand how to sift through what's good or bad. You mentioned looking on social media for exercises. Some of the biggest influencers are just 23-year-old ripped guys.
Yeah.
At 23, being ripped is not hard. When I tell kids, a homeless crackhead has a six-pack also.
Yeah.
That doesn't make me want to listen to him because he has a six-pack. So learning how to kind of decipher information, and that's something I try to do with the kids at the school is teach them how to properly research so they just don't like go with, when I Google something, whoever comes up first is not necessarily the best. Although Google and all these social media outlets have been known for skewing certain information. But sugar, kids are...
We've been lied to about nutrition for years.
Well,
The food pyramid.
It always changes too.
Right.
Right.
the food pyramid is still promoting grains and heavy carbohydrates, which is linked to early onset disease of many types, whether it's joint pain, Alzheimer's, lots of stuff. The other issue is the food that we're eating today is not the same quality of what it was when we were teenagers. And the way my friend, he's a doctor, the way that doesn't make him like, the expert, but he's a doctor who has researched this. He owns a company called Causenta, which is it's based in Arizona. It is basically an entire institute for cancer, but it's not just somebody going to treat you with chemo. It's every kind of doctor, from nutrition to a strength coach, a physical therapist, different types of nutritionists, and they have a more all-in-one versus let's just get chemo.
Yeah.
But he said, listen, even if you're in the middle of Idaho, the pollution that has just gone transported through the atmosphere through the decades is going into our soil. And so the eggs we eat, the milk we drink, da-da-da-da-da. But, teenagers today, I say it all the time, boys have beer bellies and boobs as teenage boys. Mm-hmm. How do you get a beer belly when you don't drink beer? Mm-hmm. Why do you have boobs? Lack of muscle, all sugar, and just, sitting in front of that screen. It's like it's this perfect storm to make you weak. And then, of course, you get older and now you're an unfit young man, an unfit adult. Same thing with our girls.
Habits.
Yeah. And even think about like if, with all this stuff going on with the war, what would happen if they tried to draft these kids? Like maybe we're just, I always say like sometimes we don't know what's going on around us. Maybe the kids in Pennsylvania and Iowa are different than a lot of the kids we're seeing in New Jersey. But, I think kids in general say no to a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. And nobody's like, we don't know what to do. They said no.
Yeah.
Back then, it's interesting. If a person of authority, whether it was parent, teacher, said for you to do something, police, you did it. Mm-hmm. Like I think to myself, one guy just got arrested. His house was raided on the FBI because he had said something bad about Hillary Clinton on Twitter. Right? So it's like, okay, that's interesting because, those people have done bad things themselves. But
I have to stop you here. I will never, ever badmouth Hillary Clinton. I'm sorry.
Well, who would have, when we were young, I'm never
legitimately scared.
I would never say, hey guys, let's go to the White House and put graffiti on it.
Yeah.
Now, like people do whatever they want, meaning they are vandalizing the White House.
But there's also a double standard in America.
It's the fear of God, right? They like.
There's a fear of nothing.
Yeah, there's just not. They don't believe in anything. And I believe it's because of kind of what we're preaching just in our everyday, right? It's what they see on the media and everything. It's like there's no consequences for actions anymore, right? Like there was when we were younger.
I don't think it's what they see is it comes down to it's all about me. Mm-hmm. Whereas as a coach, everything is about the kid. To me, I'm going to advocate for the kid. Yeah. I'm going to get out a sheet of paper, put a line down the middle. Good for the kid, bad for the kid.
That's exactly what I say.
Oh, that's bad? Mm-hmm. That's out.
Yep.
I'm not doing, when I first got hired at the high school, I said to the coaches, if you ask me to do something that I know is not safe or not good for them, I am not going down that road with you. Mm-hmm. I won't. I don't give a crap. I'll get fired for it. I'm always ready to get fired for doing the right thing. But it's just interesting. I have a friend that's he's about to get he's an acting chief of police now. We grew up together, and he's in a town. He's like, dude, you can't arrest anybody. And my wife said this to me. She's like the bad thing about today is people who do bad. There's no punishment for that. Maybe at least not now. People who are doing good, trying to stand up for good, they get punished. They get arrested, right? Like, didn't the one lady who was getting mugged in the city, the guy who just fired warning shots, she's like, I wish he didn't do that.
What was it? There was something on the news I just heard this morning. There was he was a firefighter. He Narcaned somebody, and the guy got up and shot him.
Oh my God! Why was
he was just trying to help the guy out?
Yeah,
was the guy in shock?
I don't know.
The crazy part is that you have all these people, like right now, I work in the city, and there's people just like driving, and they actually they don't hide. They're sitting on the side of the road, and they're just shooting heroin.
Yeah.
And the cops are saying that they carry Narcan. The drug addicts are carrying Narcan with them, so when one of them ODs, their buddy tells the cop, "Yo, here's the Narcan."
You know what's crazy?
You used to get arrested for having a needle.
The Wawa here, I've seen guys out in front high on something. And so I had to say to some of I was getting coffee or something there, and I saw one of the students leaving, one of the younger girls, and I have a daughter. And I said, listen, like, you legitimately need to be careful going to this Wawa, especially at night.
It is a freak show, right? And this is a nice. It
is. And when those guys, there was like two guys, they were high on some sort of drug, and I think it was sheriffs that were going in getting some food, and somebody said something. He goes, listen, we can't arrest them. He's like, he's out there. He's not doing anything to anyone. He's not doing anything. He's like, and we have no room.
I'll tell you this. So this actually just happened 2 weeks ago. I was here. One of my employees went over. She's a 30-year-old, girl. She went over to Wawa to go get, some food halfway in the day, and there was a taxi cab driver that was pulled up. It was kind of like a beat up, kind of old taxi, not like an Airbnb or anything, a real taxi. And the guy apparently was playing with himself in the car, and he was watching porn
in public.
Sitting in, and he was showing people, and they called the cops. I guess he did it to 2 or 3 girls, including my employee. And the cop came, pulled up, asked him a couple questions or whatever, and the guy just drove away
and said, "Get out of here."
Yeah.
Right?
This is why, like, like you're talking about going train in jiu-jitsu and stuff. You go and you almost like that girl should know, but you know what? Maybe if she protected herself, she might be getting arrested now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's what my wife was saying. Is like, you try to protect yourself, you get in trouble. And I know in California, I follow a guy. He's a lawyer, and I think he's was a Marine, so he's a vet. And he always does videos on shooting, whether it's gun safety, technique. But somebody tried breaking into somebody's house in California, and the guy shot through the door with an AR. And I can't remember how many shots it was. Maybe it was 12 or 13.
The homeowner did? Okay.
And he said, listen, this is why your state, you need to fight when they try to limit the magazine to 10 rounds.
Yeah.
Because you're probably going to have to shoot more. Yeah.
Yeah.
New Jersey, we're limited to a 10-round magazine.
Well, we're limited, not the criminals. Criminals can have whatever they want.
That's a big misunderstanding. Like, everybody says, get more gun laws. And you go, oh, the criminals. Yeah.
Well, we have, laws on drugs, but everybody's doing drugs.
People are stealing cars in broad daylight. One of the kids I trained, the mom has 2 friends, their cars got stolen, doing things like pull into the driveway, open the trunk, take a couple bags of grocery. They jump in and drive away with the car.
One of the guys that's in our gym, the guy that has the big monster truck, comes in with his girlfriend. He was telling me a story about he lives in Homedale.
Oh, this is a good story.
Yeah.
I wish we had the video to put up.
Oh, it's insane. I wish I had it. So he has surveillance all around the house, and a couple of times they tried to come in, and he's got them, on camera. They tried to get through. They climb his fence. He lives in a pretty big house.
Who's trying to get in? What do you mean?
Just people from, I guess.
They're trying to enter his house or his garage.
Sorry. So his driveway. So
to steal his car.
Yeah, and he has a fence to block the front gate. It's a big house.
Got a gated house.
Yeah. So they're jumping across, getting in. They tried a couple of cars to steal the cars
to jumpstart them.
Yeah, and he's got a couple of dogs, so they let the dogs loose. Right.
What kind of dogs does he have?
Dobermans.
I had Dobermans all my life.
So he had 2 Dobermans. They came running, and the guys ran away.
Dobermans didn't catch them?
No, it was just he let them through the door, and there's a good amount of space between. The door.
Homedale's got some big houses.
So anyway, fast forward, this happens about 4 or 5 times. The next time they come, he's actually home, but most of the cars are parked inside. There's only 2 or 3 cars sitting, and there's a Land Rover sitting outside.
All I can think about is the dogs from Magnum PI. lads.
That's
going
exactly
to
what they
attack the
were.
guy?
Yeah. So he's inside and he's got the grill on. And he's making some steaks, and it's him, his girlfriend.
So it can't
and
be
his
that
mom.
late.
Yeah, it's in the afternoon. So
And they're breaking in during daylight.
So they come across. There's some dude comes in with he's got dreads and face tattoos and stuff. He turns around in his at his house and he's going towards he's got some steaks. He's going in the backyard towards the grill. And as soon as he goes there, there's this guy standing right there. And the guy sees him and gets spooked. He sees him
in his backyard.
Yeah, so he
On his back deck.
on his back deck. Yeah. So I guess
How
he
are
just
they hopping these fences?
I don't know. So anyway, he goes to I know they literally hop the fence. It's they scale it and one right across. But so he sees him, goes to run towards him. The guy runs, doesn't realize that the grill's on because it's closed. He grabs it, burns his hand, flips off the top of the
Why
deck.
does the guy grab the grill?
He was going to jump and leap over the
Right.
top of the side, and it's not a huge jump. It's about maybe 10 feet or whatever.
Yep.
But he hits it and then goes to jump. So he jumps down, burns his hand. He's frailing as he's
Yep.
running across. Gets across, jumps across, and the guy lives in a cul-de-sac. So he's
He's chasing them down.
yeah. So he runs to it and they
You
run
got to
across.
hear how this works.
He then backs up, opens up the gate, jumps in he's got his truck is the old school monster trucks that we used to have
I
when we were
love
in high
this
school,
guy already. I
right?
don't even know him.
He jumps in. He's a cool guy too. He won't tell the full story because it's still an investigation. So and nobody knows who this guy is. So
Right.
I'll tell the story.
All
So,
right.
Anyway, so he jumps into the truck and he's waiting because he knows they're going to come back. So he comes back this way. He T-bones the car.
Their
there's,
car.
There's three of them in there. The door goes flying off, right? It's half off. The guy kicks it off, and they just take off.
But wasn't the car that they were in stolen too?
Yes.
Guaranteed.
It was, right?
Yeah.
So
and
they
then
keep going. The same criminals.
same house. Supposedly the car's $150,000 car. It's
that they're driving or they're trying to steal.
that they're trying to steal. It's a Land Rover.
We had it around.
They can't wait till nighttime. They're so dumb.
I have no idea. I don't know if they put it in the garage or what happens, but
But they're doing it in Middletown, Holmdel. They're
Yeah.
coming in and they're
Yeah.
people are putting on Facebook, hey, there's
You know
a
what
shady
this is-
car driving around.
But
Yeah.
but it gets to a point where after this whole thing happens, the guy goes away. Guy calls 911, says what happened, and it's it's right on video, right? He has a surveillance
They
holder on the
start.
house.
Then it has to keep transferring from one town to the next. It's like a police chase. I
And
don't think police want
They
to
can't.
chase
There's
anyone.
no chase, so they don't
Is
chase
that a
him.
rule now?
The guy gets away. Yeah.
Yeah, they lessen. I know they changed it a little bit, but if you're a cop right now, and you're really probably not going to chase because God forbid something happens that
You're on a microscope now.
they're going to
Yeah.
turn against you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
I have one of our coaches. A lot of our coaches either go on into law enforcement or actually become strength coaches at college. One of our guys is in his 6th year up in North Jersey, real nice town, and he's making a lateral move into the fire department. He's like, I'm tired of dealing with what do they call house argumenting? What's the
Domestic.
He's like, I'm tired of dealing with rich white people domestic violence calls. Like, I'm tired of it.
Yeah.
But he had mentioned back in the day, he's like, he was talking about getting the car fixed by Public Works. He's like, I've had some high pursuit chases, but that was 5-6 years ago. He told me that, and I was just thinking to myself, I have guns. I took my son shooting during break. He did a great job, and I'm like, man, your friend should get a compound bow and shoot them, but then he'd be the one who gets in trouble.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's like, that's annoying.
Well, the crazy part about it, that's why the anti-gun people hate Florida, hate Texas, because they have stand your ground laws. And here, you have to retreat.
Well, how about the law? Wasn't it something we were having all those protests across the bridges and stuff? And there was supposedly you can drive through them if you feel threatened.
Here in
Florida.
In Florida, yeah, because here, no, if you beep the horn at them, you're going to get arrested.
Oh yeah, for
But
sure.
here in New Jersey, if you could have somebody coming into your house saying, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
And if you still have to retreat. So see this room, there's one door.
Yeah.
You would have to be trapped in this room. You can't
Well,
get
if
out.
I kill them, who's gonna know? I retreated.
Yeah. No, but it's legit. They will prosecute you.
And here's what's crazy. We're talking about the what is the repercussions for whether it's kids who don't show up for a team or for a criminal. During COVID, they were releasing criminals.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend. Very crazy story. In his early 20s, him and his brother were selling marijuana. they were in prison for 9 or 10 years. And he's like, I get out of prison. He's like, there's all these dispensaries. And my friend made something of himself when in prison. He studied strength and conditioning. He got out, became a personal trainer. Then he opened a small studio. Then he opened a larger strength and conditioning facility. And now he's got 2 facilities, and they're beautiful. They're amazing. And what's interesting is, he had like a 1-year-old boy at the time. So when he gets out of prison, his son's now in like 6th grade. And so what he did was, while opening his first gym, he would take his son with him to train in the morning. And his son's now a freshman at Georgia Southern, full ride. And I told him, I cried because they, when they do the signing day, all the kids had like a speech, and his son gave a speech and was very respectful, thanking each coach. And he goes, last but not least, I got to thank my pops. And he talks about, he's like, my dad woke me up. I remember it started in 8th grade, waking me up early. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to do those workouts. He's like, but here I am. I'm so glad he pushed me and did everything with me. Nice. And I said, he's like, what's crazy is like, we were in prison for, I think, 9 or 10 years for selling.
Those kind of stories choke me up.
Yeah, thank God he was able to reconnect and stay connected to.
Awesome guy. And what he's doing is like, he has 2 gyms. The one he just opened is in his community, and the way he built it out, he's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing. And yeah, it wasn't like he was.
What town is he from?
He's in Florida, Fort Walton Beach.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Destin area, which is, a beautiful area.
It'd be ironic if he came out and opened up a weed dispensary after all that. Yeah.
I remember one guy
Second chance weed dispensary.
One guy went to my certification down in Florida, Tampa area. Hey, well, we got to go soon, right? We have to shut it down. But he left the strength and conditioning and opened up the biggest indoor marijuana dispensary in California, like massive. Wow. And, people out there are doing it for pain management. I'm not endorsing,
I'm in pain every day.
I'll be honest with you. Like, I've never smoked pot, like drinking, all that stuff. It's just stuff I don't do. But there's people and doctors and just trying to find ways with those that are in pain, finding ways to manage it. So it's just interesting to see where our world is going.
I think, especially with marijuana in general, I think it's definitely a lesser alternative. Like, you've never seen, or hear stories about someone smoking weed and going and beating the crap out of somebody or stabbing somebody. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
well, you get the munchies and you die of cholesterol.
Yeah,
it's pretty violent.
they might go steal some chips at Wawa or something, but that's about it.
Hey, Joe, before we wrap up,
Zach
was bringing up jiu-jitsu before. Can I bring up my event that we're doing?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So I'm doing, you were talking about I didn't get to segue into it, but we're doing Tap Cancer Out. So if anybody wants to go on, I'm honoring my grandfather. He died of leukemia. So right before I was born, my mom was pregnant with me. He didn't get to witness this greatness. So we're actually, I think there's about 20 people so far.
I'm going to sponsor
as a fundraiser.
I do it every year.
A
cancer fundraiser, a cancer and a military fundraiser every year.
Nice.
So where are you going to link it up?
So it's on Tap Cancer Out. It's under Russell Mason. That was my grandfather's name. He was a combat wounded World War II vet. So we're going to roll for 1 hour straight.
Oh.
So what I can tell you as a 50-year-old lazy person, this is something that may turn into a snuff film. I'm going with a friend of mine, Kevin McCarthy, and he's like 51. He's a little bit tougher than me. He's been doing it a little bit longer, but we've committed to roll for 1 hour straight. There's about 20 people in God's
If you're in jiu-jitsu, Brian, you're not lazy.
And
I think you have to stop saying
he does it all the time.
He does.
And he also goes, he's pretty religious about it. He goes at least 3-4 times a week.
You're not lazy. Lazy are people who do
I
nothing.
have to convince myself to go sometimes.
That's
I
right.
convince myself to get to the gym every day.
I haven't been doing it long enough.
As Joe Rogan says, destroy your inner bitch.
Put it this way, when we train, and there are times you do like 6-minute rounds, right? And they're like the other night we did 6-minute rounds.
Oh dang!
And I actually feel like I'm gonna die.
Bust you.
And one night I remember one of the guys I'm rolling with. He's in awesome shape, he's a brown belt, ass kicker, and he goes, "No, Brian, you're not going to die." And I'm like, and then I'm thinking, this guy's never been a fucking 50-year-old out of shape guy, but I didn't die. But yeah, so it's gonna Tap Cancer Out. They have a full webpage. It's under Russell Mason. I've got
post the who does it? Vincent will post post the link in the info section.
Yeah, I've had some really.
I'm gonna donate.
We'll do it on the outro credits.
Yeah. So I've had some really good people step up and do some really
awesome.
good donations.
American Sidebar is going to donate as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So far we had Indian Larry Motorcycles donated.
Oh wow.
Brian from Aspire Fitness gave an unbelievable and I don't know if he wants to say the amount, but I was overwhelmed with.
He's
with
awesome.
That.
Brian
Yeah,
Bott,
great guy.
Great guy.
Yeah, we've had some, and it's so far it's a great.
Remember
cause.
this when you're on the mat, okay?
Dude.
Just remember this
I'm
one
not
thing.
going to be thinking of anything besides survival.
Your brain is going to
It's going to
quit
be mush.
before your body does.
I'm thinking that my body, dude.
One match at a time.
You're going to start talking yourself in.
this
Like
is
you're done.
60 minutes. We'll
So
just go.
this is where you're going against one person for 60 minutes straight.
That's good.
So if I make it, I make it. If I die, I die.
It's like
that's the way I look at it.
It's 1/3 of my high school wrestling practice back in the day. Yeah.
So
All
that's all I
good.
got. So
Excellent.
thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thanks for coming again, Zach. I appreciate
Great
it.
times.
Can't wait to have
I
you
feel
back
like
in again.
I feel like a third leg co-host.
We didn't even get into some of the stuff we said we were going
No,
to
there's
get
so
into.
much. It's just awesome to talk to you.
We'll
It's so
do it
easy.
again.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you guys.
This was American Sidebar. Have a great day.
Like a boss.